that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Such a step up from the Merchant of Venice. Oh my god. I mean, everybody should know this, but if it is not abundantly clear that in terms of the Western canon and just Western civilization, next to the Bible, Shakespeare has to be one of the most influential beings in all of history. Like, oh my god. Macbeth, I might die. There's a thing back in the day where people like died during the play because they said the name. All that hocus pocus, silly Billy things that people talk about. Anyway, Macbeth, banger. Still nothing beats Hamlet. Hamlet is the end all be all. Which, funnily enough, let me just do this tangent for a second. That phrase came up, and I was like, this came out in the 1600s, right, or the 1500s, something like that. So I looked it up, I Googled it because I was curious. The end all, be all phrase comes from Shakespeare, comes from this play. You know how many times I've said the end all, be all, not knowing its origin? Listen, I oftentimes get upset with myself that only now in my 20s did I really get into reading, and that I skipped all of my high school years reading, and most of my middle school years too. It was like early middle school and elementary school I read. Then I just stopped reading for all of high school. And I always, get like negative at myself because I'm like, I only have so much time to live, time is fleeting, time is fret, we'll all eventually perish and die. And there's only so much books I can read in the time frame in between work and friendships and this and that and trying to be an actor. There's so little time to do the things I want to do. And so I always get upset at myself for not reading back in high school a lot of this stuff. But at the same time, I think had I tried reading Shakespeare of my own accord in, high school, it wouldn't have worked. Because I didn't even enjoy Shakespeare in high school. I didn't enjoy Moby Dick. Like, I hated reading in high school. I just did not enjoy it. And I would not have appreciated these things had I tried reading them then. But now, as someone that really, I started off with the Star Wars Expanded Universe, right? That's what kind of got me back into the love of reading, And trolls back in the day would tell me I need to touch grass. But at the same time, it's like, if not for Star Wars, I wouldn't be a reader again. But also, like, I just love reading. Like, I tell you, like, sometimes prose is just like, it just gets me going. Like, you give me some really good prose and I am set. Like, I love just, like, I want to be an actor, right? And I love plots, I love stories, but you can do that in a video game or television or movie, but there's something intrinsic within the work of, I mean, I know this is a stage play, so it's not the same, but still, just in literature in general, the English language, and I'm Hispanic, right? And I don't really know Spanish because I grew up in America and my parents didn't speak it. And Spanish has beauty to it. French has beauty to it. Italian, all different languages have beauty to it. But the thing about the English language is it's so complex that there's so much nuance and different things you can do with the same things. And I love seeing that throughout all these works. And it's just the writing from Shakespeare is, people try with all their life and all their might to come close to this man 400 years after the fact. And very few hold a candle to him. It's incredible that one man 400 years in the past could make such long-lasting things. And I'm just gushing because Macbeth, as of right now, I know there's King Lear, which is also considered one of his very best, and Othello, in terms of tragedies at least. I know there's comedies and other things and sonnets, which I'll eventually get to. But nothing beats Hamlet, but this is probably the second closest thing to it so far. And I know Romeo and Juliet won't be Hamlet. That's for sure. Anyway, Macbeth. Why did I go on this tirade about the expanded universe and all this stuff into? Because everything tangentially is somewhat related to Shakespeare in terms of literature and art and cinema and all that. It all kind of leads back to that man at some point or frame. But specifically with Star Wars or like Lord of the Rings, some of the things I adore and cherish from my youth, specifically Macbeth, is kind of like the grandfather of it. Because, and I mean, I know there was, ancient, um, stories and stuff, and tales and whatnot, but in terms of Macbeth is a story of a man filled with ambition who regrets everything that he does, follows through anyway because he sees no return, and bases a tragic end. I mean, it's a classic thing. I mean, I know there's the whole thing with the witches being in the story because of the king of the time being really into the occult stuff and all that shenanigans. I really don't care about any of that. It's more so in this story we get that sort of notion of free will versus determination. Macbeth gets this prophecy from these three witches at the beginning of the story. And so is it because of the prophecy that he received that everything follows through the way it does? Could he have done otherwise, or was it always the conclusion he would make? Because the witches never particularly tell him to make any decision in this story. All they say is that one day he's going to be king. They really don't elaborate on how to get there. Him and his wife kind of make all those decisions themselves. It just kind of all perfectly laid out the prophecy that it was foretold. So you get that sort of dynamic there of free will versus determination, a deterministic reality. You get a reluctant villain because at the start of the play, his wife is a lot more like you're a little baby. Go and do it. Stop being a little whore about it and go do it. And he's like, I don't know. And then later on, it flips, and she's the one that can't bear it, and he's made himself so numb to it that he can just carry on. But even still, by the end of the play, and this is a spoiler, sure, it's a 400-year-old play, okay? Do better. His wife seemingly kills herself because she's unable to bear what they have done. And then, Macbeth gives that famous speech from this play. And it's just all empty now. It's all vacuous. It's all meaningless. And I say all this because George Lucas, Star Wars, bring it back full circle to where this channel really became a book channel, really start focusing on that. Anakin Skywalker, right, is quintessentially, like, that is just our modern day, like, in terms of, like, impact, right, because, like, Star Wars is, like, a household name now, right, or Boromir from Lord of the Rings, to pick your point, or Gollum to a certain extent. Anakin Skywalker was filled with ambition. He was told from a young age he was this prophesized Messiah, this golden child. And he has this ambition to be better. He also has this extreme love for his wife. And then by the end of it, right, you get people really hate on the prequels and all that. But look at the baseline story going on here. It's a very similar structure in a lot of ways. But by the end of the story, I mean, he has effectively killed his wife. And now he has to continue living, despite the fact that the entire thing that gave him purpose and meaning, he has effectively gotten rid of, right? And so he has to basically live his life, and this is also adding in EU things, but because if you read the EU, Vader basically hates himself, and the hatred and the strength he gets in the dark side is from his own hate toward himself. And Macbeth very much hates himself as well. He just also can't seem to kill himself, like he can't go that far, but it definitely seems like within the play, he's hoping somebody will just be able to stop him. Anyway, brilliant play, and a lot of things are connected to other things I love, which I love. But yeah, basically, Macbeth is an incredible warrior, right? And then he meets these witches who tell him he's going to be king one day. And him and his wife come together to make this plan to kill the king, Duncan, who's a really nice guy, really cool guy. But they kill him. They blame the murder on someone else. And then, what do you know? Macbeth becomes king. And slowly over time, he kills more people to protect his power base and just gets more and more desensitized to it. Whereas the wife, she starts off really gung-ho about it a little bit. And he's like, and she even, it's interesting. We talk about, like the equality of women and men, and that's a whole thing. Of course, believe women and men are equal, but not necessarily in the same ways. Specifically, she tries to be more toxically masculine in order to accomplish the things she wishes to. She talks about, like, she loves her kids, but if she could, she would rip off her nipple or something and bash the kid's head in if it meant that she would be more able to accomplish their goals. But she tries all that, but clearly she can't let go completely, because by the end of the play, she succumbs to the despair and guilt over what her and her husband have done, and she kills herself. And like I said, Macbeth can't bring himself to kill himself, but I think just kind of gets more numb and numb and numb, and just kind of gives away to hoping that eventually someone will kill him. But he just doubles down, and it's kind of a thing too. Like, if you're mired in so much blood and murder and guilt, if you've done so much, is there really any redemption for you? That's been a question we've been asking forever. And so he's like, you might as well just double down. I mean, at that point, like, there's no redemption for me. Although that's the question, is there? There could be, I imagine. But he believes he doesn't have any. So he just, instead of, what's the purpose of being good if you're so mired in sin and guilt? You might as well just double down and continue forward. So there's so much that can be said about this play. So many people have better than me. So I'm not going to, like, regurgitate everything that you could hear, other than praising this story for being 400 years old and still being relevant. Shakespeare will forever endure. When I am dead, people will still talk about Shakespeare, because Shakespeare is transcendent. This is what I truly, Harold Bloom said it. I'm saying it too. People will say it after I'm dead too. But Shakespeare has endured because next to the Bible, he is that transcendent. His stories are resonant throughout time and space, and they may be, the dialogue might be a bit different, and you have to get used to that. But once you have that, kind of like, you're kind of like, after you read like one or two plays, it's kind of like you're fine every time. But there's always this truth and resonance behind it all, and I've yet to feel anything so powerful like that tomorrow quote with him. Is up there with my favorite book of the Bible, Ecclesiastes, where everything is vanity and striving after wind. The only reason that the Bible is not as pessimistic as his speech here is because then it all circles around back to God, which Macbeth does not do. But yeah, I'm trying to think, do I have any other specific notes? Other than the point of no return is kind of when Macbeth orders the killing of women and children. Again, like Anakin Skywalker, episode 3, full circle. I do kind of want to read the tomorrow quote, because it's worth it. I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it well, but I'm gonna do it. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then he is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That is after his wife, of course, killed herself. And he's talking about the meaninglessness of life. And it's exquisite. Just eat it up. Shove it down my veins. It's so good. Shakespeare, incredible. There's a reason Cervantes was a huge admirer. Speaking of which, I'll be finishing Don Quixote next week, don't worry. Milton. Everyone. Like, there's a reason this stuff endures, man. And good literature, good storytelling, good prose are the things that shall endure the test of time, you know? There's nothing wrong with entertainment. There's nothing wrong with enjoying tie-in fiction, right? Like, I enjoy the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Do I think... I mean, there's a lot of novels in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Do I think some transcend time? Very few. How many of those will we remember in 200 years' time? I love Conan, but will that be remembered in 200 years' time? I know it helped shape fantasy. For sure. But there's a clear difference between Robert E. Howard and Shakespeare. It's clear as day. You make that distinction. Everything's vanity, striving after wind. We all fret, we all worry about our day-to-day lives, but it will all eventually end. You know, we all have ambition, we all have dreams, we all have goals. And the more less self-aware you are, the better it is. Ignorance truly is bliss, and the more aware of reality that you are, the more you don't get to enjoy it. It's the catch-22 of being aware, of trying to fully see the world beyond a certain lens. As you increaseth knowledge, increaseth suffering. I want to be an actor. I know there are people that are so much more talented than me. And there are people that are also just a little bit less self-aware. That truly believe that the world is their stage to bask in glory for the next 60 years until they pass away. But I was talking about this with a resident, actually. I work at a retirement home. I've been going through all of Al Pacino's filmography. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. But I also grew up in the early 2000s where he was still consistently doing work. He was still in the conversation. The man is 80-something. He will die eventually. Now, I love film, so I know who he is. Future actors will know who he is because they will hear about Godfather. They will watch The Godfather. They will watch Pacino. They will watch the rest of his filmography. He will endure. However, in the public consciousness, how many people, like teenagers, kids that will turn into young adults and become the 20-year-olds that I am when I'm 40? How many of them are going to go back, unless they have a vested interest in film, are going to go back and watch a film from the 70s, like Godfather or Serpico? How many people will go back and watch that? I don't think too many will, unless they have a vested interest in being a filmmaker or a cinematographer or an actor, where they would be invested in going back to those old things. But if you're just a normal moviegoer, in another 100 years, no matter how famous Al Pacino was and is, nobody's going to know who he is. All that talent, all that work. At the end of the day, signifies nothing except for your own personal validation, which is ultimately what it should be for. If you want lasting impact, you know, but even still, like even if you cure cancer, right? Take like 1,000 years down the line, like people will always remember your name. They'll remember the name. But just like anything else in history, you remember history class. You will be a name in a book. And some kids will appreciate that. Some kids will read it, finish their test, and move on, not giving you another second thought, because no matter what you do, in the end, it signifies nothing, because you will die. Just like you don't really think about your great-great-grandparents, despite the fact that without them, you couldn't be here. I don't know anything about my great-great-grandparents. I know about my great-grandfather only because of my grandfather. He lived a pretty long life. But his grandfather and beyond, I don't know. Some people in Mexico that I'll never know or understand. that have no relation to me. Just like, even if I have children, my great-great-great-grandkid will have no idea who I am, will never care, will never find, and even if they find these videos, it'll be basically a stranger to them. I'm not meaning to make this dour. I'm just saying, it is interesting. You know, I'm trying to act. But I'm not, even if I were to become an Al Pacino, I'm not doing it for some sort of lasting impact. I know I will eventually be forgotten. I recognize that fact. I do it for my own personal enjoyment because it's something I think I can be good at and something that I enjoy. That gives me some sort of spark in this short lifespan of a universe we live in. So I must pursue it. I have to make some sort of sense out of this existence. Which everybody needs to strive to do. Never put yourself in a corner where you're stuck. You only have the one life. So, all that to say, Shakespeare, incredible. Macbeth, incredible. I'm so looking forward to the rest of Shakespeare's plays and works. Super looking forward to it. Now I must get to work. But, absolute banger. Just incredible. 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 Loved it. You know, I'm glad I exist in time where I can just kind of read these all fairly easily and find plays online easily. And I can just, you know, there's a lot of bad things going on in the world, but, you know, literature, storytelling, it's why we're here. You know, it's why we endure. It's why we endure the suffering and the pain and everything in between, because we get to enjoy that. You know, as Dead Poet Society tells us, you know, medicine, law, engineering, these are all noble pursuits necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. Storytelling, art, this is what we stay alive for. This is what gives it some semblance of, oh, it was worth it in the end. So I'm glad I get to experience it. I'm glad I get to read these stories and just appreciate the fact that I can read and watch a story from a man that existed 400 years ago and feel a sort of kinship. You know, different skin colors, different cultures, you know. But there's connection. And that's beautiful. So I'm gonna go. I've kept this long enough. So much better than The Merchant of Venice. It wasn't bad, but nowhere near the quality of this. Anyway, next time we'll be finishing Don Quixote. It'll either be one part or two, depends on how long it takes me to read it. And from there, I'm really struggling. Do I go back to Dresden Files, which is fun and I do enjoy it, and unfortunately The Wheel of Time, which I do need to keep going on that. Or do I keep going with Dante, the Divine Comedy, and Paradise Lost, and the Canterbury Tales, and the Count of Monte Cristo, which I really want to read, or Pride and Prejudice, which, you know, every year that goes by, I get more and more disillusioned with love. But at the core of my being, from a very young age to my teenage years, I was always, you know, a hopeless romantic. I always, you know, I'm a little softy. I'm a little softy guy. And I've been urging to read Pride and Prejudice now that I appreciate literature a bit more, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So it's about finding time to do so. And guys, this is the problem. There's just life is too short, and there's so much to read and enjoy, and I just won't be able to enjoy all of it. It's so frustrating. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for listening to me ramble, and be safe, and keep loving art, and keep making art. I know some of you are authors and creators, and just keep being your best self. Keep making things. Keep being alive. And I don't just mean eating food and existing. I mean actualize it. Be alive. Cherish it. And yeah. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.